Inside a private hangar just outside Dallas, a gleaming Gulfstream G700 sat still, its left engine dead, its polished wing catching the late afternoon sun through the open bay. 7 hours had passed. 7. And still, the engine refused to respond. A red tool cart stood abandoned, drawers pulled open like they'd been looted. Sweat soaked the back of every shirt in the room. Engineers from 3 different firms paced in silence. Their tools failed. Their scanners read clean. But the engine? The engine said no. At the far end of the hangar, Darnell Knox, black billionaire, aviation tycoon, and owner of that G700, checked his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. His suit was navy blue, sharp at the shoulders, his eyes sharper, his silence heavier than any curse. His jet had to be in Boston by nightfall. A defense contract depended on it. No one dared speak. Sam Boone, the lead mechanic, wiped his brow and shook his head at the diagnostic screen. "We've torn it down, rebuilt, recalibrated. Nothing makes sense," he muttered. Darnell didn't blink. His security team scanned the perimeter. Someone coughed. Another dropped a socket wrench. The noise rang too loud. Pressure mounted like a plane too long delayed on the runway. Then, "If you let me try, I'll fix it." The voice was soft, clear, female. Every head snapped toward the sound. The hangar doors were open, just enough for one person to slip through. And there she stood, a young black woman, barely 21, wearing a faded hoodie with frayed sleeves, jeans smeared in grease, and high-top sneakers duct-taped at the toes. Her hair was tight-coiled and wild around her face, her hands stained with engine oil. But her eyes, those eyes were locked on the Gulfstream's engine like she already knew it by name. Someone snorted. A few engineers scoffed. Sam stepped forward, half annoyed, half amused. "You lost, sweetheart?" The girl didn't flinch. "No, sir." "How'd you get in here?" A security guard barked. "I walked." "You with one of the teams?" "No." "Then turn around. This isn't a charity garage." Sam turned to Darnell, gesturing for security to remove her. But Darnell didn't move. His eyes narrowed, studying the girl. The room paused. The girl took a step forward, never looking at Darnell, only at the jet. "I heard the whistling sound during landing," she said. "It came in rough, didn't it? Like it didn't want to stop spooling down." Sam blinked. So did 2 engineers. One of them whispered, "That's exactly what happened." The girl kept going. "That's a bleed line issue. But not the obvious one. And if I'm right, your diagnostics wouldn't catch it because the error's hiding under another one. You're chasing the wrong ghost." "Who are you?" Sam asked. She finally looked at him. "My name's Zuri." "That doesn't mean anything to me." "She's the janitor's kid," someone muttered. A pause. Sam's lip curled. "That true?" Zuri nodded once. The room nearly laughed. But Darnell raised a hand. One simple motion. Everyone stopped. In the heavy stillness, his voice was calm. "Let her speak." "But sir," he didn't repeat himself. Zuri stepped closer to the engine. "If I'm wrong, you'll know in 10 minutes. But if I'm right, I can get that bird off the ground before sundown." Darnell stared at her for a long moment. Then finally, "Give her the gloves." The engineers froze. Sam blinked. "You serious?" Darnell didn't answer. He just kept looking at Zuri. Not her shoes, not her hoodie, her eyes. A younger tech, maybe curious, maybe just scared to say no, handed her a pair of clean gray gloves. She slipped them on with shaking hands, but when she stepped to the engine, the shaking stopped. She moved like she belonged there. If you're still watching, you already feel it too. So don't just sit there, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on that little bell. Because what this girl's about to do, you won't believe. Zuri stepped toward the engine, but 2 security guards moved faster, blocking her path. One grabbed his radio. "We've got an intruder in Bay A." I'm not an intruder, she said calmly. I'm a mechanic, just not a hired one. Sam rolled his eyes. This is a multi-million-dollar jet. You think this is some high school shop class? One of the engineers muttered loud enough for her to hear. What's next? We let Uber drivers fix reactors? Another laughed. She probably saw a YouTube video. Zuri didn't respond. Her gaze never left the engine. The guard raised his voice. Last warning, miss. You leave now, or you leave in cuffs. But then Darnell spoke again. I said let her speak. The room froze a second time. Sam frowned. Boss, with all due respect, I've seen men with degrees miss the obvious. Let's hear what the janitor's daughter thinks she knows. A hush settled. Zuri approached the engine slowly, reverently, like she was entering sacred ground. She crouched near the intake, fingers hovering inches above the metal without touching it. She closed her eyes. She's pretending she's one of those airplane whisperers, someone whispered sarcastically. Chuckles followed. Zuri pointed to a small cluster of clamps near the compressor unit. That one's misaligned. It's tight but on the wrong groove. Causes a minor air leak under full load. Makes a high-pitched whistle, like a tea kettle when descending. Sam's smirk faltered. The younger technician beside him looked confused. Wait, we did hear something like that on landing. Zuri nodded. You thought it was backflow. It wasn't. It's resonance through the bleed line. Whistle under load is the first sign. She shifted position, shining a borrowed flashlight into a tight crevice near the sensor bundle. And this, she said, voice steady, is your second problem. What now? Sam crossed his arms. She pointed to a sensor wire hugging a bracket. That insulation is cracked, barely, but under heat, it shorts intermittently against the bracket. The signal gets corrupted. The computer thinks the engine's misbehaving, so it adjusts fuel mix and spool rate, and everything feels off. One of the senior engineers leaned forward. How do you even... She stood. Because you've been chasing symptoms, not the cause. The air leak makes the sound. The wire makes the system compensate. Fix one, you still get failure. Fix both, and it runs like it's supposed to. No one laughed this time. Sam squinted. You saying we missed two separate faults? Hiding each other? Yes. The younger tech checked his tablet, scrolling furiously through earlier diagnostics. We did get inconsistent readings near that bracket, he murmured. Sam stepped toward Zuri. What's your name again? Zuri Monroe. How old are you? 21. Where'd you train? Zuri hesitated. I'll tell you later. Sam scoffed. Of course! But Darnell's voice cut through again. And how long will it take you to fix it? Zuri met his gaze for the first time. 15 minutes, maybe less. He looked to Sam. Your team's been here 7 hours. And we ran every test. And none of them worked, Darnell said flatly. Let the girl try. Sam threw up his hands. Fine. Burn the gloves while you're at it. Zuri grabbed the tools. Her movements were clean, fast, purposeful. She unfastened the clamp, reset it into the correct groove, tightened until it clicked sharp. Then she stripped the damaged wire, rewrapped it with heat-shielding tape, insulated it with a soft sheath, and secured it away from the bracket with a zip tie. She checked everything once, then again, then a third time, not a single wasted movement. The hangar, moments ago filled with doubt and mocking tones, now watched in total silence. Zuri stepped back. It's ready. Sam stared at her. That's it? That's it. He looked at the engine, then back at her. We'll test it. But if that warning light so much as blinks, then shut it down, she said. Darnell turned to the crew. Move. They rolled the engine cart forward. Outside, the light had changed. The sun dipped low, washing the tarmac in orange. Ground crew connected lines. A technician brought the control panel to Darnell himself. But even as his hand hovered over the ignition, His eyes returned to Zuri. She stood still. Wind tugged at her hoodie. Her hands were clasped in front of her, but her eyes were calm, focused, ready. The moment stretched. Darnell pressed the starter, and the engine screamed to life. The engine spun up with a piercing whine. A dozen eyes locked on the monitor. A soft hum began to rise, clean, steady. Then a sharp chirp cracked the silence. A red light blinked on the screen. Warning. Sam cursed. "Kill it! Shut it down now!" Zuri raised one hand, palm out. "Wait. You're crazy," one of the techs snapped. "That light's core temp." "It's not," she said calmly. "It's recalibrating." "Do you want this thing to blow?" "It won't." Sam turned to Darnell. "This is your plane. Your call." Darnell didn't speak. He just watched Zuri. "I rewired the sensor," she said, eyes still on the machine. "It needs a second to reset its thresholds. It thinks the fault's still there, but it's just reading clean input for the first time." The red light flashed again, louder this time. Zuri didn't move. "Give it 10 seconds. Silence spread like wildfire. The engine whined higher, numbers climbing on the display. The red warning blinked faster, then slower, then disappeared. The room exhaled. A low rumble took over, smooth as silk. It was the sound every jet tech lived for. Alive, balanced, strong. Sam stepped back, face pale. "That's not possible," he whispered. A wrench clattered to the floor. Someone else muttered under their breath, "No way." Zuri slowly pulled off the gloves, folded them, and set them neatly on the cart. Her face was slick with sweat, but her hands were steady. Darnell finally spoke. "How long did that take?" 14 minutes, someone answered, watching the clock. Sam stared at the engine, stunned. "We missed both of those faults." "You missed them because they hide each other," Zuri said. "That's what made it hard. The clamp makes the sound. The wire makes the engine stutter. Fix only one, and it throws you off the trail." Darnell looked at her, really looked. "You know this model?" "I know engines." "Where did you train?" Zuri hesitated. "That's a long story." He nodded once. "You saved my flight. I think you've earned the right to tell it." The engine was rolled back, the tools cleaned, the alarms silenced. But no one left. They watched her like she was a ghost. A mechanic that came from nowhere, pulled off the impossible, and spoke like she understood metal better than men. Sam shook his head, humbled. "I've worked jets 20 years. No one in this room saw what you saw." Zuri said nothing. Darnell stepped forward. "Who are you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her voice cracked. "If the test went well, I'd tell you." Darnell raised an eyebrow. "Well, the engine's alive. I'd say that counts." She looked down. Zuri Monroe. The name meant nothing to most in the room, but Sam's eyes widened. He mouthed the name again. "Monroe? From Clark Aviation Institute?" Zuri looked up, startled. "You know it?" "I was at the conference in Atlanta 3 years ago. There was a girl who stunned every aerospace exec in the room with a real-time system simulation. That was you." Zuri didn't answer. She didn't need to. Sam's expression shifted from disbelief to awe. "And then you disappeared." She nodded slowly. "I had to." No one spoke. Only the hum of the cooling engine filled the silence. "I was 20, she said softly. Just out of school. My mom was sick, cancer. My dad worked janitorial night shifts to keep the lights on. I gave up the job offers, stayed home to care for her. When she passed, my dad, he broke, lost his job. We lost the house. I lost myself." The room went still. "I've been fixing things in back alleys and scrapyards, anything to survive. But every day I walked past this hangar, I'd look in through the fence, wondering what it would feel like to matter again. When I heard your voices today, I thought, Just once. Let me try. Even if I fail. At least I'd know. She looked away, blinking fast. Darnell's jaw tightened. He had seen 100 pitches, 1,000 resumes. But never had anyone walked into his world like this. You didn't fail, he said. You gave that engine its life back, and you reminded everyone here why second chances matter. He turned to the crew. You all saw it. Remember this moment. No one moved. Then one by one, heads nodded. Even the techs who had laughed at her minutes ago. Zuri stood frozen, unsure if she should bow or back away. But Darnell wasn't finished. Zuri Monroe, he said clearly. From this moment forward, you'll never fix engines from behind a fence again. The room erupted. Engineers clapped. Sam stepped forward and took her hand. Welcome back, he said. She smiled, eyes shining. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. And just outside, the sun dipped low over the Dallas sky. The engine hummed behind them, alive. So was she. Zuri stood still, hands by her side, as the roar of the engine behind her faded into a low, steady hum. The crew, once scattered and frantic, now circled the machine like pilgrims before a miracle. No one spoke. Darnell approached slowly, his shoes echoing against the hangar floor. His voice was soft but firm. Now that it worked, I want to know your name. She met his eyes for the first time. Zuri Monroe. Sam's head snapped up. Monroe? Zuri didn't blink. Yes, sir. He took a step forward, squinting. Clark Aviation? She nodded once. Sam's mouth parted, stunned. You were the one at the Southern Engineering Summit, 3 years ago. You designed a dynamic flow model that caught the attention of Boeing, Lockheed, and NASA all in one day. Darnell looked between them. You're telling me she's that Monroe? Sam nodded slowly. She had offers lined up from every firm in the room. Then she vanished. Zuri shifted her weight. I didn't vanish. Life just hit hard. Darnell folded his arms. Tell me. She exhaled. Her voice dropped. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 2 months after I graduated. It was aggressive. Fast. We didn't have insurance. My dad picked up night shifts at the airport janitorial division. I turned down every job offer. Stayed home to take care of her. No one interrupted. She passed 6 months later. I didn't even have time to grieve. My dad, he spiraled. Lost his job. Lost himself. We ended up squatting in his friend's storage unit. I tried to keep working, doing little repairs around auto shops, fixing lawnmowers, HVAC systems, anything mechanical I could get my hands on. But none of it paid steady. Sam lowered his head. I'd walk by this hangar all the time, she continued, her voice growing quieter. Look through the chain-link fence. Sometimes I'd draw diagrams in the dirt with a stick, just to remember how it felt to solve something. I kept telling myself I'd get back here one day. But the longer I waited, the more I started to believe maybe that girl in the spotlight 3 years ago wasn't real. Darnell stared at her. And today? Today, she said, swallowing hard. I heard shouting. I saw people running. I recognized the sound of that engine from the street, knew it was a G700. My dad taught me how to listen. He used to say, engines lie less than people do. She looked down. I knew I had nothing to lose. The silence in the hangar turned heavy again. No one moved. Darnell's voice came low. You've been sleeping on the streets? Some nights, she said. Some nights on cots in the community shelter. Some on the roof of the parking structure near the FedEx depot. You learn where to go. You stop thinking about the future. Just think about how to get to tomorrow. A young tech covered her mouth. Another turned away. Darnell stepped closer. And yet when you saw my team struggle, you stepped forward. Zuri met his gaze. Because I remembered what it felt like to matter, and I couldn't let that memory die. Sam wiped at his eyes. God, Zuri added, almost in a whisper. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just needed to prove to myself that I still knew who I was. Darnell turned to the others. She remembered who she was, while half this industry forgot her name. Zuri stood in the center of the hangar. No spotlight, no title, no resume. Just grit, grief, and raw skill. And for the first time in years, someone listened. Darnell cleared his throat. You're not walking back through that fence tonight. Zuri blinked. Sir? You've earned more than a thank you. You've earned a seat on that jet. You're flying with me to New York. Her breath caught. Why? Because you didn't just fix an engine, he said. You fixed something bigger, something most people in this business forgot how to see. He extended his hand. Come with me, Zuri. I have people you need to meet. She hesitated, then reached out. Her fingers curled into his. And just like that, the girl who had once disappeared stepped back into the light, one hand on her future, the other still stained with grease. The staircase lowered from the belly of the Gulf Stream like something out of a dream. Zuri paused at the foot of it, her backpack clutched in both hands, fingers trembling. She looked up at the polished body of the jet, the very machine she'd just brought back to life, and hesitated. Darnell stood halfway up the stairs, looking down at her. It's not a trick, Zuri. You fixed it. You ride it. She nodded once, legs moving on instinct. The metal steps echoed beneath her sneakers. Inside, the cabin opened like a private world, leather seats as soft as cream, dark walnut panels glowing beneath gold-tinted lights, the scent of fresh linen and citrus in the air. Zuri stood stiff near the entrance, afraid to touch anything, afraid to breathe. The flight attendant offered her water, but she shook her head. Darnell pointed to the seat across from his. Sit. You'll want to be buckled before we take off. She sat carefully, folding her arms over her chest like she didn't belong. The seat swallowed her whole. The engines came alive beneath them, flawless, balanced. The machine she had healed was carrying her skyward. Zuri stared out the window as the runway pulled away and the skyline of Dallas shrank into shadow. Her reflection in the glass didn't look like an engineer. She looked like a ghost, half real, smudged with exhaustion and oil, wearing the same hoodie she'd worn 3 days straight. You look nervous, Darnell said. She turned. I've never been on a private jet before. You've repaired one. That puts you ahead of most passengers. He leaned sideways, opening a small compartment beside his seat. From it, he pulled a slim black box, velvet-lined, and set it on the table between them. Zuri looked at it, but didn't move. Open it. She hesitated, then reached out. Her fingers brushed the lid. Inside lay a silver wristwatch, elegant but worn. A name was etched into the back. Clarice. She was my wife, Darnell said. She passed 2 years ago. Brain aneurysm. No warning. One moment she was dancing in the kitchen. The next, she collapsed. Zuri whispered, I'm sorry. She used to say, the best gifts don't make you feel richer. They make you feel seen. He pushed the box gently toward her. She would have liked you. Zuri blinked. I can't accept this. You already did, he said. You just didn't know it yet. She closed the lid, pressing both hands over it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The seatbelt sign chimed off. The attendant returned, this time holding something draped over her arm. A gown. Gold, soft, shimmering without being flashy. Alongside it, a small leather kit. Zuri stared. What is that? Clothes, and the tools you'll need to feel human again. You will. There's a bathroom at the back. Take your time. Zuri stood with the gown in hand, still unsure. When she returned 20 minutes later, the woman who walked back into the cabin wasn't the girl from the hangar. Her hair was washed and pulled into a gentle bun, her face clean, her posture straighter. The gown hugged her gently, simple, elegant, and hers. Darnell looked up and didn't speak right away. His eyes softened. You don't just look different, you look right. Zuri smiled, unsure whether to sit or vanish. She eased back into the seat. They dined in the sky, salmon, rice, warm bread, lemon water. It wasn't the meal that changed her. It was the silence, the kind that didn't demand performance. He asked about her childhood, her first time taking apart a lawnmower, the professor who once told her she made engines sing. She answered slowly at first, but as the miles passed beneath them, her voice found itself. The things she thought she'd lost started to return, piece by piece. When dessert was cleared, Darnell leaned back, folding his hands. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting at Orion Aero. Zuri blinked. The maintenance group? They're opening a new headquarters division. We've been negotiating a joint contract for 2 years. Her breath caught. I know them. I do too. They passed on your resume 3 years ago. Her hands curled on her lap, he continued. Back then, your application never made it past their filters. No Ivy League, no referrals. A black girl from an HBCU who hand-wrote half her recommendation letter because the printer was broken. They didn't see you. She looked away. He leaned forward. They will tomorrow. Zuri turned to him, stunned. You'll walk in with me, he said. You won't beg for a job. You'll stand beside the man whose jet you resurrected. I can't. They won't believe me. They will. Or they'll answer to me. Zuri's mouth opened, then closed. She turned to the window. Below them, city lights scattered like stars across the earth. She whispered, What if they laugh again? Darnell's voice dropped. Then they laugh at me too. But I don't think they will. You're not asking for permission anymore. You're walking in. Zuri pressed her hand against the cool glass. The girl who once stared through chain-link fences was flying 38,000 feet above her past. The engines hummed steady beneath them. She closed her eyes and didn't say another word for the rest of the flight. But when they began their descent into New York, she looked back at Darnell with something new in her eyes. Not fear, not hope, resolve. The elevator doors opened to a boardroom encased in glass, 20 floors above Manhattan. Sunlight pierced through the high-rise skyline, bouncing off polished floors and sleek screens displaying jet schematics. A long obsidian table stretched down the center of the room like a runway. Every seat was filled. 12 executives, 11 of them white, all of them staring. Darnell entered first, every step deliberate, his presence like gravity. Zuri followed, gold dress modest but radiant, hair in a soft bun, eyes focused forward. She walked like she didn't hear the whispers, like her knees weren't shaking. One man in a gray suit, silver hair slicked back, leaned toward the woman beside him and whispered, She's in rags. Another said louder, Is this the intern? A chuckle rippled across the table. Darnell didn't smile. This is Zuri Monroe. The air shifted slightly. He took his seat at the head of the table. Zuri stood beside him. She's the engineer who diagnosed and repaired the fault on my G700 yesterday in under 15 minutes, after your contracted team failed for 7 hours. That wiped the grin off 3 faces. A man at the far end adjusted his cuffs, voice dry. That's quite the claim. Darnell stared straight through him. It's not a claim. It's fact. A woman in a crimson blazer tapped her pen. No offense, Mr. Knox, but we've seen many young talents. Genius isn't as rare as people think. consistency is. Darnell's jaw tensed. Judge her work, not her shoes. The man in gray leaned back. We'd be happy to do so. He turned toward the wall display and tapped his tablet. The screen lit up with a full engine schematic. Digital, interactive. Let's see if Miss Monroe can swim with the sharks. Zuri didn't flinch. Simulated fault. No hints. Real-time data. Same system model as your jet. Darnell glanced up. You sure you want to do this? She stepped forward. Yes. The man tapped again. The schematic spun, lights flickered. A warning flashed across the screen. Vibration fault detected. Sector B6. Zuri leaned in. Her eyes narrowed. Her fingers hovered over the controls. She scanned the numbers, the live chart, the sensor log. She didn't touch anything. Not yet. The room waited. False positive, she said finally. The man raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? The sensor's reading is too high, but the surrounding metrics don't support mechanical stress. The turbine isn't under abnormal load. Temperatures are clean. Vibration pattern is synthetic. Someone across the table muttered, What the hell is synthetic vibration? Zuri zoomed in on the fault module. It's software echo. Either the calibration offset is wrong or the sensor's loose. It's not a structural issue. If this were real life, I'd recalibrate, recheck mounting, and run post-maintenance diagnostics before grounding the aircraft. The display flashed again. Sensor calibration error resolved. Confirmed. The red warning disappeared. Silence. The crimson blazer woman blinked. The man in gray looked like he swallowed his tongue. Zuri stepped back. One of the senior executives, an older woman with tight silver curls and glasses like polished steel, finally spoke. She's correct. Perfectly correct. No one laughed now. Darnell sat still, one hand folded over the other. You wanted to test her. Now you have. The man at the end cleared his throat. We weren't questioning her knowledge, only her experience. Darnell didn't blink. Her experience? She rebuilt a jet you couldn't diagnose, rewired a system your team failed to understand, and navigated your demo trap without hesitation. She's unproven. She's undervalued. Like every brilliant black girl your systems ignore because their resumes don't match your templates. The room shifted. Eyes lowered. Zuri stood quiet beside him, hands calm, posture rooted. The silver-haired woman tapped her pen gently. We're opening a new regional HQ, Houston. If we gave you the reins, Miss Monroe, what would you do? Zuri met her eyes. I'd build the most reliable branch in the country, not for pride, but to prove no system can bury someone who knows how to fix what others break. The woman leaned back slowly. And you'd carry that responsibility? Yes, Zuri said. Because I already have. Alone. With nothing. This would be the first time I'm not carrying it in silence. Darnell leaned forward. I trust her with my aircraft. I trust her with my name. If you don't, say it plainly. The table stayed quiet. Finally, the crimson blazer woman sighed. We'd be foolish not to consider the results. The silver-haired exec nodded. We'll reconvene by end of day. You'll have our answer. Zuri said nothing. She didn't need to. As they exited, Darnell placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. You didn't just pass. You rewrote the test. The black car waited by the curb, engine humming as if it knew something had changed. Zuri sat in the back seat beside Darnell, silent, watching the city blur past the tinted glass. Her fingers toyed with the edge of her borrowed dress. She wasn't sure if she felt like an imposter or a storm. Neither one said anything until they passed the Queensboro Bridge. "They won't say it to your face," Darnell said at last. "But you shook them." Zuri looked over. "Is that good?" He cracked a smile. "Depends if they shake back or strike." The car stopped at a boutique hotel, discreet and quiet. Upstairs, a suite had been prepared with a view over Manhattan. As the sun began to dip behind glass towers, Darnell's phone buzzed. He read the message, paused, then turned to Zuri. "They've decided." Her breath caught. "They want to offer you the directorship." Zuri's eyes widened. "Wait, of the Houston branch?" He nodded. "Full control of operations, aircraft maintenance, training, team oversight, client interface, the whole thing." She stood still, like the floor might fall out from beneath her. "They want me to run a division? They want you because they have to. They don't know how to explain you, and they sure as hell don't know how to contain you, so they're giving you power, hoping you'll either rise or burn." Zuri turned toward the window. The skyline looked colder now, higher. "I've never led a team," she said. "You led a hangar full of men who doubted you. You've already started." She shook her head. "What if I mess it up?" "Then you fix it. That's what you do, isn't it?" There was a knock at the door. A hotel assistant stepped in with a suit bag and a new pair of shoes. "They requested your measurements earlier," Darnell said, "for tomorrow's announcement." Zuri took the bag, hands trembling slightly. "They really want to make this official. Tomorrow morning, you walk into Orion's Houston branch as its new head." She paused. "You said earlier, they never even saw my application 3 years ago." He nodded. "Now your name's going on the building." She sat down slowly, the suit bag still in her lap. "What changed?" "You," he said. "You showed up, you spoke up, and you didn't back down." Zuri let out a shaky breath. "Okay." Darnell smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Later that night, as Zuri slept, Darnell stood by the suite window, phone in hand. A new message had arrived. No sender ID. "Put her in Houston, and we'll shut it down from the inside. She doesn't belong at the top." He read it twice, then deleted it. But the weight of it stayed. The next morning, Houston's Orion hangar gleamed under Texas sun. Newly built, chrome signage, spotless floors. Inside, a dozen senior staff lined up to meet their new director. Most were white. A few black engineers stood toward the back. They didn't smile. They watched. Zuri stepped in, heels clicking across polished tile, suit sharp, hair pulled into a clean braid down her back. Every inch of her body screamed composure. But her palms were sweating. Darnell walked beside her, nodding to each manager. Walter Green, the current operations lead, stepped forward. Broad-shouldered, black, eyes unreadable. His handshake was firm, but his voice cold. "So, you're the new face from corporate." Zuri matched his grip. "Zuri Monroe. Big reputation, bigger expectations," he said. She kept her voice level. "I'm here to work, that's all." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see." A tour followed. Tool bays, engine inspection lines, QA stations. She nodded, asked questions, noticed small flaws, fuel hoses stored near heat panels, torque wrenches racked without calibration tags. She logged it all silently. In the conference room, the regional HR manager laid out the welcome documents. Zuri signed. Official. Then came the all-hands meeting. Floor crew, engineers, admin staff packed into the hangar's central space. Darnell stepped up first. 2 days ago, this woman saved my jet. Yesterday, she stunned the Orion board. Today, she takes the reins here in Houston. A few polite claps. A few whispers. He stepped back. Zuri moved to the mic. "I'm not here because of favors," she began. "I'm here because I didn't walk away from a problem others couldn't solve." The room quieted. "I won't lead with titles. I'll lead with work. I don't care where you trained, what rank's on your badge, or how many years you've logged. If you respect engines and respect each other, you'll have no problem with me." She let the silence stretch. "And if you think I don't belong here, that's fine too. You don't have to believe in me. The engines will." This time, more claps. Some were genuine. Walter crossed his arms in the back, unmoving. Afterward, Zuri returned to her new office, a glass cube on the mezzanine. It was too clean, too new. She sat behind the desk, stared at the blank computer screen. A knock. Darnell stepped in. "You didn't flinch." "I did," she said. "You just didn't see it." He nodded. "That's leadership." Zuri hesitated. "What if they try to sabotage it?" "They already are." He pulled his phone, showed her the message. Her face froze. "Why didn't you tell me last night?" "I needed you to walk in unshaken." She looked away. "You'll have allies. Sam's on his way. I'm installing a secondary audit system. If anyone moves dirty, we'll know." Zuri looked up. "Why are you doing all this?" Darnell paused. "Because someone gave me a shot when everyone said I'd fail." He stepped closer. "And because you've got the kind of fire that burns through steel. The kind this place forgot how to handle." She nodded slowly. But outside the office window, Walter watched from below, arms still folded, eyes sharp. And behind him, another tech leaned in with a smirk. The gears were already turning, and not all of them were mechanical. The Houston branch looked perfect on the surface. Fresh paint, precision tools lined up like soldiers, workbenches spotless, inspection bays humming. Everyone wore crisp Orion coveralls. But Zuri felt the tension before anyone spoke. She walked the floor early, hours before her first full day officially began. Her badge hadn't even been printed yet. She wanted to observe without the weight of title, but even without a name tag, people knew. Some nodded politely, most looked away. She stepped into Bay 3, where a Challenger 650 was undergoing engine inspection. 3 techs leaned over a console, whispering. When they noticed her, one of them stiffened, then forced a smile that never touched his eyes. "Morning," Zuri said. They mumbled something in return and turned back to the screen. She circled the plane slowly, taking in the details. That's when she spotted it. Turbine housing left unsecured. The torque wrench used to tighten it lay nearby, untouched. "Who signed this bay as cleared?" she asked. One of the men glanced over. "It's still under inspection." "Not according to the log." She picked up the tablet mounted to the frame. The screen showed a green check. Signed off. 5 hours ago. A beat of silence. "Must have been a glitch," another tech said too quickly. "System's been buggy since the last update." Zuri said nothing. She walked to the console, tapped into the local record archive, and pulled the last inspection report. The data had been scrubbed. No timestamps, no audit trail. Her stomach tightened. She walked out without another word. Upstairs, she stepped into her office and shut the door. She opened the system dashboard, keyed into internal access logs. Nothing irregular showed. Everything was clean. Too clean. A knock. Walter Green entered without waiting for permission, his arms crossed, the same half-smile on his face. "Doing some early digging?" Zuri kept her tone neutral. "Bay 3 has a sign-off with no torque verification. The log's been wiped." Walter didn't blink. "Must be a software glitch. Happens with new branches. Does it happen before the first audit?" He leaned on the wall. "You're new here. Let me offer some advice. These guys, they don't respond to policing. They respond to trust. Try not to come in like a hammer. I'm not here to hammer anyone, but I'm going to make sure engines don't fall out of the sky." Walter's gaze hardened. No one here wants failure, but they will push back if they feel watched. Good, Zuri said. Let them push. That tells me who's hiding something. He pushed off the wall. You're not in Atlanta anymore. This isn't a classroom. This is Houston. Real pace, real clients, real politics. I don't care about politics. I care about work. That's a nice line, he said, walking out. Zuri sat back in her chair. She opened a secondary channel and forwarded the wiped inspection log to Sam in Dallas. He hadn't arrived yet, but he'd know how to extract hidden metadata. She attached a note. Bay 3. Something's off. No timestamp trail. Cover up? She hit send. Downstairs, the hum of engines and drills filled the air, but the faces moving through the hangar were different now. The way they glanced up toward the glass office, the way they paused mid-task when she walked by. She stepped into Bay 6 an hour later to find a group standing around a diagnostic tool. The engine bay was open, a jet intake fan exposed. Loose wires hung near the combustion chamber. Zuri frowned. Is this how we prep for inspection? A young white tech looked up, waiting on the senior to verify. Where is he? Don't know. He stepped out 10 minutes ago. She examined the panel. Diagnostic wires had been rerouted incorrectly. It wasn't sloppiness. It was deliberate. She took a photo. Then another. Behind her, a voice said, Problem? It was Luther. Thin, pale, eyes sharp. One of Walter's right-hand men. Misrouting. False sensor path, Zuri replied, not looking up. Probably a trainee. We've got a few still learning. Then why are they working on jet diagnostics? Luther smirked. Welcome to Houston. She didn't respond. She walked out, gripping the tablet harder than she needed to. In her office, she uploaded the photos, flagged the file, and started a full-scope random inspection request, one that would sweep every bay unannounced in the next 48 hours. Her authority let her do it. Her gut told her she had to, but even as she keyed the last command, she saw it, on her desk. A wrench. Old, rusted, slightly oily. It hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. There was no note, no message, just the weight of metal. And silence. The alarm came in just after 5:17 p.m. A Gulfstream G500 scheduled for a VIP charter had triggered a critical warning on engine startup, bleed air valve fault, emergency override engaged. The message flashed red on the main terminal. Zuri was already on the hangar floor when the alert came. 2 techs were scrambling near the control console. A supervisor barked into a comm. A pilot stood nearby, arms crossed, irritated. Zuri walked straight through the commotion. Who authorized takeoff before full check? No one answered. She pushed past them, climbed into the belly of the aircraft, and slid toward the bleed air system panel. The moment her fingers touched the housing, she froze. A faint smell. Not oil, not carbon. Synthetic sealant. Fresh. Sealant on a bleed valve? She muttered. Sam appeared beside her. He had just arrived from Dallas 2 days ago. Darnell's quiet reinforcement. Zuri pointed. Tell me I'm not crazy. That's epoxy sealant, right? Sam crouched down, examined the valve. Yeah, industrial grade. What the hell is it doing here? That's what I'm asking. She pulled open the valve casing. The spring-loaded regulator inside had been wedged open. It couldn't close under flight pressure. The plane would have lost cabin control before hitting cruising altitude. Someone had rigged this jet to fail. Sam's face darkened. This wasn't an accident. Zuri stepped back, heart pounding. Shut the hangar down. Now! Walter appeared behind them, flanked by 2 floor supervisors. What's going on? He asked. Zuri turned, voice cold. Sabotage. Someone manipulated the bleed system to create a valve jam. This plane would have depressurized in flight. Walter blinked once. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime. Walter stepped forward, looked into the housing. He said nothing for a long moment. Then, turning toward the room, Fix it. Fast. Or resign. Zuri's jaw clenched. You want this covered? Walter's voice dropped to a warning. I want it handled, without drama. You want to lead? Then lead. Get this bird flight ready by midnight or step aside for someone who can. Then he turned and walked away. Sam waited until they were alone. He's protecting someone. Obviously. They worked in silence for 10 minutes. Zuri's hands were precise, angry. Her jaw clenched tight as she cleaned out the epoxy and reset the valve alignment. Sam broke the silence. Want me to pull the logs? Zuri didn't look up. Already logged into the server. Which access point? Console 4B, engineering terminal. Sam nodded and walked off. Zuri kept working, but her mind was racing. Whoever had rigged the valve had deep access. Console 4B required biometric ID. There would be fingerprints. Unless... She stood up, crossed the hangar to the secondary terminal, and opened the admin override. Each command had a shadow trail, invisible in surface view, but traceable with the right filters. She filtered for system-wide bypasses within the last 48 hours. One entry popped. User, IDWG92. Time, 02:13 a.m. Action. Access override. Console 4B. Modify maintenance log. Disable fault alerts. Apply custom override. Exit session. Zuri stared at the screen. IDWG92. Walter Green. She didn't blink. She copied the log, encrypted it, and transferred it to a secured folder only Darnell had access to. She didn't trust the Orion internal servers anymore. Sam returned a minute later, holding a printed log page. Match found. She nodded, already knowing what he would say. He looked at her. Walter. Yep. Sam leaned on the wall beside her. What's your move? Zuri exhaled slowly. We fixed this jet, but I'm not burying the truth. I don't care what he threatens. You need protection. I've got Darnell, and now I've got evidence. Sam's expression was unreadable. You think he's working alone? Zuri looked toward the upper glass office, where Walter had once again taken his perch. No, she said. He's just the face. She turned back to the plane. There's someone higher. Sam's eyes narrowed. Then we find them too. Together, they finished the valve calibration, reset the bleed system logic, and re-verified the entire pressure protocol. At 11:48 p.m., the G500 passed its final systems test. The engines purred. Every warning light was green. Zuri signed the clearance file herself, but she didn't sleep that night. She just stared at the copied log on her tablet, replaying the moment the plane could have dropped from the sky, and wondering how many others had. The morning meeting began at 9 o'clock sharp, but tension had already thickened the air by 8:30. Zuri stood at the front of the Houston hangar's operations floor, not in the upstairs office, not behind a glass wall. She wanted every employee to hear what was about to happen. Walter stood near the back with his arms folded, his jaw tight. Luther, the senior line technician, loomed beside him, tall, silent, and unreadable. Sam watched from the side, tablet in hand. Zuri didn't raise her voice. Last night, someone tried to fly a compromised aircraft. The bleed valve on Jet G580 had been intentionally sealed to force an override failure in the air. If it had launched, the crew would have had minutes before cabin loss. A ripple of murmurs. She tapped her tablet. The projector behind her lit up. Logs appeared. This is a trace from the console logs. Entry time, 2:13 a.m. Access point, Console 4B. Maintenance override commands executed manually. She turned to the crowd. The user ID tied to this entry belongs to a technician, Luther Banks. Gasps. Luther didn't move. Walter did. This is outrageous, he said. You're presenting internal logs like courtroom evidence. What exactly are you implying, Ms. Monroe? Zuri's voice sharpened. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. Luther accessed the override terminal, disabled alert protocols, and introduced a system error designed to fail under altitude. Walter stepped forward. That console is used by multiple staff. You have no proof he was the one at the keyboard. Sam interjected. Biometric logs confirm fingerprint and retina scan. Console 4B doesn't allow proxy logins. It was him. The room went silent. Zuri locked eyes with Walter. The real question is, why are you defending him? Walter's face darkened. You don't get to come here with accusations and tear down my team. This branch worked just fine before you arrived. No, Zuri snapped. It ran on secrets and silence. That ends today. She stepped closer. How long have you known? Walter didn't answer. She turned to the team. Anyone here who helped cover for this sabotage is complicit. This isn't just company protocol. It's attempted murder. If that jet had gone up... She let the words hang. Then she made the call. Mr. Knox, you're needed in Houston, now. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She just said it clearly, in front of everyone. Walter flinched. Luther finally spoke. You don't know what you're doing. Zuri turned. Enlighten me. But Luther said nothing more. An hour later, the private jet touched down. Darnell Knox walked into the hangar in his signature dark coat, flanked by 2 legal officers. He didn't shake hands. He didn't smile. He simply said, Start from the top. Zuri did. She walked him through every log, every override, every piece of proof. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Darnell listened. Quiet, intense. Then he turned to Luther. Do you deny these logs? Luther remained still. Walter stepped in. He's being scapegoated. No, Darnell cut him off. He's being investigated. He looked at the security officer nearby. Secure Mr. Banks. Escort him to holding. We'll proceed with internal review and federal report. The officer nodded and stepped forward, but Luther was already gone. The space where he had stood was now empty. Zuri's stomach dropped. Security scrambled. Darnell spun to his team. Lock down exits. Pull every camera feed. Find him. Zuri whispered to Sam. He ran before the jet landed. Sam nodded grimly. He was never going to stay. He knew. Zuri stepped back, eyes narrowing. This wasn't just about a disgruntled technician. This was something larger, and the first piece had just slipped through their fingers. Zuri barely slept. By morning, her name was everywhere, for all the wrong reasons. Her inbox exploded with unread messages, dozens of missed calls. Screenshots lit up her phone, tabloids, blogs, even national news, all running one headline. Unknown engineer almost causes jet disaster at Orion, Houston. A photo of her, cropped from the hangar's security cam, was plastered across the screen. Grease-stained gloves, frizzy hair pulled into a bun. The same photo repeated again and again, each with a worse headline. Orion hires unqualified janitor's daughter. 9 Malum client jet nearly fails after mystery fix. Where's the FAA? By 9:00 a.m., a major private charter company canceled its contract with Orion. $9 million gone with a single email. By 10:00 a.m., the Orion board called an emergency meeting. Zuri sat alone in the glass-walled conference room as the directors filtered in. All suits, all men, none of them smiling. Darnell wasn't there. Not yet. Walter stood beside the board chair, arms crossed, face calm like he hadn't just protected a saboteur. The chairman began. Ms. Monroe, due to recent events and the publicity surrounding your involvement with Jet G580, the board has concerns regarding your continued leadership in Houston. She opened her mouth, but he cut her off. The facts are irrelevant. Perception is reality in our business. We've lost a marquee client. Zuri gripped the edge of the table. That jet would have crashed if I hadn't caught the override. That sabotage hasn't been proven, Walter said smoothly. Her jaw clenched. The chairman continued. In order to preserve our reputation, we are recommending immediate suspension, pending internal review. Mr. Knox will make the final decision. Zuri stood, her voice steady. You're punishing me for saving lives, for doing the job better than anyone in this room ever could. Walter smiled. You were never supposed to be in the room. The board whispered. Zuri walked out. Her steps echoed down the corridor like war drums. She found Sam waiting in the hangar bay, eyes wide. They're doing it, aren't they? He asked. They want me gone. Sam looked around, then pulled her into a side hallway. I got something. Security didn't delete all the backups. He held up a flash drive. Hotel Continental, 10:44 p.m. The night before the jet sabotage. He loaded the footage. The grainy clip showed Walter Green walking into the hotel lobby. He looked around, then nodded toward someone off camera. Seconds later, Luther stepped into frame. They exchanged a brief handshake, not casual, not warm, businesslike. Then they disappeared into the elevator together. Sam looked at her. That's collusion. They planned this. Walter let Luther disappear. Zuri whispered, They set me up. She copied the footage onto her own drive. We need to show Darnell. At noon, Darnell walked into the Houston office like a storm. He didn't acknowledge Walter, didn't sit. Zuri stood in the corner, calm, holding the flash drive like a loaded weapon. I've seen the news, Darnell said. I've seen the numbers. I've seen the board statement. Walter leaned forward. Then you understand. I understand, Darnell interrupted. That I built empires from scratch. That I turned defunct hangars into billion-dollar enterprises. That I've been called worse names in headlines. He turned to Zuri. I also understand what genius looks like, what bravery under pressure looks like, what truth feels like when the rest of the room is lying. He nodded once. Play it. Zuri inserted the drive. The video ran in silence. Every face in the room froze. Darnell turned to the board. This is the man you protected. This is the leadership you backed. He turned to Walter. Pack your things. You're done. Walter sputtered. You can't. I just did. Darnell looked at Zuri. You stay. You finish what you started. The board didn't clap. They didn't speak. But one by one, they stood and left, their silence louder than applause. When the room emptied, Zuri slumped against the table. Sam exhaled for the first time in an hour. Darnell picked up the flash drive. They came for you because you're young, brilliant, and black. But you stood, so now we stand with you. Zuri didn't cry. She couldn't. Not yet. She just whispered, Thank you. But this war wasn't over, and the next move belonged to Luther. 2 days later, another jet hit the tarmac with smoke trailing from its left engine. A Gulfstream G600, new model, clean record, now grounded in front of a furious CEO pacing on his phone. Zuri walked toward the scene without hesitation, gloves already on, hair tied back, clipboard in hand. Don't touch that, a technician warned, looking down his nose at her. It's above your level. Zuri didn't break stride. Then call someone who's actually fixed one of these. He blinked. She ducked under the wing. Sam followed close, tossing her a flashlight. It's a bleed valve anomaly, he muttered. Might be electrical or a leak. Zuri tapped the casing twice. Listen. A faint whistle answered back. Not metal on metal, not fluid pressure. It sounded almost hollow. She knelt by the intake, pressed her ear close. It's resonance. There's air vibrating inside something that shouldn't have space. Sam frowned. Cracked insulator? Or a sabotaged coupling, she whispered. He stiffened. They opened the cowling. Sure enough, one coupling had been filed down, barely noticeable. Not enough to cause failure, just enough to trigger a fault. Zuri replaced it, fast and clean. She resecured the housing, rerouted the line, and double-checked every diagnostic twice. 37 minutes from smoke on the runway to a green light dashboard. The furious CEO, now watching from a distance, lowered his phone. "You fixed it?" Zuri nodded. "And it won't fail again. Someone messed with it." He stared at her. "What's your name?" "Zuri Monroe." A pause. Then he pulled out his phone again. But not to call, to record. He turned the camera on her, then to the engine. "This young woman, the one they blamed, she just saved my flight. Again. Somebody better give her a raise before she builds her own damn company." He uploaded it to TikTok on the spot. The clip hit 1.2 million views in 4 hours. By midnight, it was at 4 million. Zuri's name trended on X, then Reddit. Comments flooded in. "She's the one who fixed Darnell's jet too." This is what happens when you underestimate black women. Get her on a stage, not just a hangar. The next morning, Zuri arrived at work to a slow clap. The technicians who once ignored her now watched her with a different kind of silence. Not resentment. Respect. Maybe even awe. One of them, an older man who never spoke much, stepped forward. "They were wrong about you," she nodded once. "I know." In New York, the Orion board convened again. This time, the footage played on a projector in their own boardroom. Walter, summoned for review, sat stiffly as the chairman read the internal audit. The Houston base saw a 17% rise in client inquiries overnight. Monroe's footage went viral. We were publicly shamed and publicly redeemed. Without PR. Walter stayed quiet. The chairman clicked a button. The screen froze on the frame of Zuri crouched under the jet, flashlight in her teeth, sleeves rolled up. She may have worn rags, but she flies better than most in suits. The room fell still. Then the vote came. Walter was placed on indefinite leave, pending further investigation. Outside the building, in the gray Manhattan afternoon, Zuri stood with her arms folded, staring up at the Orion logo. Darnell stepped beside her. "You're not done yet," he said. Zuri didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her name was no longer just a footnote. It was the headline. And somewhere, someone still hadn't made their final move. The bright lights bounced off the polished chrome of the Orion hangar as rows of reporters jostled into position. Microphones bristled like a thicket on the long podium. In the center stood Darnell Knox in his charcoal gray suit, flanked by executives and staff. But all eyes were on the young black woman standing quietly beside him in a fitted navy blazer, her natural curls pinned up, her eyes steady. Zuri Monroe. Darnell leaned forward. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," he said. "You've seen the headlines. You've seen the footage. But you haven't heard the truth. Not all of it." Cameras clicked. He paused. Then he placed a gentle hand on Zuri's shoulder. "This," he said, "is Zuri Monroe, the new head of engineering for Orion Houston." There was a beat of stunned silence, then an eruption of questions. "Isn't she the one who almost caused that jet malfunction? Didn't the board suspend her? Where did she even study?" Zuri didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice calm. "Yes, I was blamed. Yes, I was nearly removed. But the truth has a way of resurfacing when you fix what others try to break." Darnell stepped aside. Zuri's hands gripped the edge of the podium. She scanned the crowd. "I didn't come from legacy," she said. "No Ivy League coat of arms on my resume. No last name to unlock doors. I came from mop buckets. I came from overnight shifts, helping my dad clean floors no one noticed." A reporter in the front row leaned forward. "So why should we trust you with millions of dollars worth of machinery?" Zuri smiled, soft but unshaken. "You think I'm just a janitor's daughter?" She let the silence stretch. Then, I was never just a janitor's daughter. I was always an engineer who just needed one person to say, try. There was a pause, then one clap, then another. A wave of applause rose like a current breaking against a dam. Camera shutters exploded like firecrackers. Darnell beamed, but Zuri didn't bask. She nodded once, grounded, as if still standing in that Dallas hangar floor, grease on her sleeves, timing each bolt twist to a heartbeat. Reporters rushed forward. The questions came faster. Is it true you caught a sabotage attempt? Will there be a formal investigation? Was Walter Green part of it? Zuri lifted a hand. I won't speak on internal matters, but what I will say is this. I don't run on revenge. I run on results, and my results saved lives. Darnell added, you all reported a story about a jet almost crashing. What you missed was the part where she stopped it, and the part where she proved every single doubter wrong. Backstage, Sam watched the broadcast from a tablet, his jaw clenched with pride. Walter Green's name was now circulating in internal audits. His fate was sealed. But Zuri had never aimed at his downfall. She only rose to meet what was hers. As the press conference drew to a close, a final question rang out. Ms. Monroe, what's next for you? Zuri glanced at Darnell, then back to the sea of lenses and lights. I fix things, she said simply. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. And with that, she stepped down from the podium. Not like someone finishing a speech, but like someone starting a mission. The room erupted behind her, but she kept walking forward, not away from the noise, but into it, into the future. The Orion Foundation's annual charity gala pulsed with soft jazz and warm lights strung above the open-air rooftop in downtown Houston. Zuri stood near the edge of the balcony, her heels silent against the concrete. Her dress, a deep burgundy satin, swaying gently in the breeze. She wasn't used to this kind of evening. Spotlights instead of hangar floodlights. Silk instead of grease. But she didn't feel out of place. Not tonight. A waiter passed with glasses of champagne. She declined with a small nod and turned her attention to the center of the crowd. Darnell was speaking with donors. The kind of smile on his face reserved for legacy events and legacy money. Then someone new stepped beside him. Tall, mid-20s, crisp dark suit. Skin like polished bronze and eyes that scanned the room with a quiet calculation. He moved with a blend of confidence and caution, like someone trained to read people before being read. Zuri didn't recognize him. Not at first. Darnell waved her over. Zuri, he said, meet my son, Malik. She froze. Malik. He extended a hand. Nice to meet you. Heard a lot. Likewise. Their handshake was brief, but something lingered. An almost imperceptible flicker behind Malik's eyes. Later in the evening, they found themselves beside the same table of auction displays, vintage aviation tools, signed flight jackets, an old engine dial encased in glass. You really fixed that G700? Malik asked. His tone wasn't skeptical. It was curious. Zuri shrugged. Wasn't the first engine I fixed. Won't be the last. He smiled. You remind me of someone. She tilted her head. Oh? There was this tutor I had during lockdown. I was 16. Depressed. Couldn't keep up with school. My dad hired someone anonymously to Zoom with me once a week. She never showed her face. Only her voice. Patient. Knew how to explain stuff that felt impossible. Zuri's fingers curled around the edge of the display case. She helped me get through algebra, Malik continued. We talked once about engines. Just once. She said engines and people both need the right fuel. Otherwise, they stall. He turned to face her fully now. That was you, wasn't it? Zuri didn't answer immediately. The rooftop noise blurred into a hum. "You were just a voice in the dark back then," he said quietly. "And now, you're standing in the light." Zuri finally met his gaze. "Back then, I didn't think I'd ever matter to anyone, so I taught, hoping maybe someone would remember something I said. Something useful." Malik nodded. "I remembered." A new kind of silence settled between them, not awkward, but reverent. Two strangers who were never really strangers, just people orbiting the same gravity, finally aligned. Malik picked up a folded card from the auction table. "This says it's a W2 altimeter. Still works?" Zuri smiled. "It's more impressive if you know how to read it." He glanced at her sideways. "Maybe you'll teach me again sometime." This time she didn't look away. "I might." The Houston facility buzzed softly in the background, machines humming, tools clinking, the rhythm of precision and purpose. But in the far corner of Bay 2 there was no clatter, just silence and two people standing beside a newly restored Rolls-Royce Pearl engine. Zuri adjusted the calibration valve, glancing sideways. "You're off by 0.04 millimeter, Malik smirked. "Or you're just a perfectionist." She arched an eyebrow. "Densaria." "There's no just about that." They had been working together for 9 months. Days filled with spreadsheets and engine diagnostics, nights of shared takeout and silent laughter across dashboards. Somehow, what started as an accidental reconnection had evolved into a rhythm they both trusted, like gears aligned without ever forcing the fit. Malik leaned against the tool chest, watching her with that quiet admiration he never tried to hide. "Remember what you said when we first met again?" Zuri didn't look up. "I said a lot of things." "No," he said. "You said, 'I fix things.'" He paused. "Well, so do I. Kind of. I fix systems, processes, broken funding chains." Zuri looked at him now. "You fixed more than that." He didn't smile this time. His voice was steady. "So did you." Behind them, the afternoon sun sliced through the high windows, casting golden stripes across the bay floor. Malik reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black box. No ceremony, no crowd. No, just the scent of oil, rubber, and possibility. Zuri froze. He opened it. Inside, a titanium ring with a tiny diamond shaped like a hex bolt head. Not flashy. Functional. Familiar. "I could have done this on a rooftop," Malik said. "Or at one of those galas you hate. But this," he looked around the hangar. "This is where you became who you are. Right here, where you once stood in ripped jeans and said, 'If you let me try.'" He stepped closer. "So now I'm asking you to try something else. Try us. Try building a life with me." Zuri stared at the ring, then at him. Her voice wavered only slightly. "I've spent my whole life proving I'm not broken, that I don't need saving." "You don't," Malik said, soft. "You never did." She nodded, tears slipping free. "Then yes." She didn't even wait for him to put the ring on. She took it from the box and slid it on herself. Steady hands, no hesitation. From behind the storage unit, slow clapping echoed. They turned. Darnell Knox stood there in his navy overcoat, smiling with something deeper than pride, something closer to peace. "She fixes engines," he said. "Now she's fixing this family." He walked over and wrapped an arm around Zuri. "From Janitor's kid," he said softly, "to my daughter." Zuri didn't cry this time. She just held on to him. Malik stood behind her, arms wrapping around them both. For the first time, the hum of the hangar sounded like home. The hall was lit like twilight, golden hues cast from tall candelabras, ivory petals strewn across polished oak floors. Everything was warm, glowing, hushed, as if the whole room was holding its breath. Zuri stood at the altar in a satin dress the color of fresh cream, her curls swept to one side, no veil, no crown. Just her, fully seen. Across from her stood Malik, eyes locked in a gaze that didn't waver once. There were only 70 people in the room. Engineers, friends, a few family members. But it felt like the whole world had gathered. When the officiant nodded gently, Zuri took a breath and stepped forward. No paper. No notes. Her voice clear, unwavering. I lost my mother to cancer when I was 19. The room fell absolutely silent. I lost my father. To poverty. To humiliation. To a world that told him he was invisible even when he scrubbed its floors. Malik's throat tightened, but he didn't look away. And I lost myself, Zuri continued. To grief. To silence. To the lie that brilliance needs a pedigree. That dignity comes with a paycheck. That some people are born to lead, and some are born to clean up after them. She paused, glancing to the front row, where Darnell Knox sat with trembling lips, his hand covering his mouth. But one person, she said softly, told me to try. Her eyes flicked back to Malik. One chance changed everything. Not just my job, not just my future, but the way I saw myself. Her voice cracked, but only slightly. I promise to try for the rest of my life. Try to listen. Try to be kind. Try to fix what's broken, even when it's not mechanical, especially when it's not. She took his hand, and I promised to never forget where I started. Because being a janitor's daughter made me strong enough to stand here, and being your wife will make me stronger still. A moment, and then the entire room rose to their feet. No cue, no music. Just raw, collective emotion. A spontaneous standing ovation of hearts that couldn't stay seated. Darnell stood last, slowly, tears streaming freely down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them, didn't hide them. He looked at Zuri and nodded, like a man witnessing a promise bigger than vows. A promise that history could, in fact, be rewritten, if someone just said, try. The office was quiet, high above the hangar floor. Glass walls framed a view of sunlight glinting off the fuselage of a newly painted jet. Below, engineers moved like clockwork. But in this moment, everything was still. Zuri stood in front of the mirror inside her new corner office, head of engineering, Houston Division. She wore a fitted navy blazer embroidered with the Orion Arrow insignia. No oil stains. No loose threads. Her badge gleamed on her lapel. Her hair was pinned with purpose, but a single curl had slipped loose along her cheek. She stared at her reflection, not out of vanity, but to remember. Because not long ago, this same mirror had shown her a different girl. A girl in grease-streaked jeans. In shoes with one sole flapping. A girl who spoke softly because the world taught her to. Zuri raised her hand to the glass and let her fingertips hover near her reflection, like touching the ghost of her past. You made it, she whispered. Behind her, the door opened. Malik stepped in, holding a clipboard and 2 cups of coffee. He caught her gaze in the mirror. Talking to yourself again? Talking to her, Zuri replied, without turning. Malik walked up beside her, offering the coffee. She took it, eyes still fixed on the girl in the glass, who was now a woman, a leader, a legacy. She's proud of you, Malik said. Zuri nodded. She should be. From janitor's daughter, to engineer, to wife, to the woman now leading the future of black aviation. The girl in rags was gone. But the fire? The grit? The refusal to be invisible? That stayed. And this time, the mirror showed a woman who no longer needed to ask for permission to try. The Houston hangar buzzed with quiet focus, tools clicking, engines humming, conversations low and steady. Sunlight poured through the wide bay doors, catching the polish of a freshly serviced Gulfstream. Zuri stood by the tool bench, reviewing a schematic with Sam. She wore her Orion jacket over a plain gray tee, sleeves pushed up, safety gloves tucked into her waistband. A small voice spoke up behind her. "Excuse me, Ms. Monroe?" Zuri turned. There she was, a girl no older than 15. Thin arms, big eyes, shoes worn thin. She held a tattered notebook close to her chest. "I heard you take interns," the girl said, nervous but steady. I want to try." Zuri blinked once. She saw it instantly, the same hunger she had carried once. Walking into rooms where no one expected anything from her. The same need to prove she could be more than what she looked like. "What's your name?" Zuri asked. "Layla," the girl said, almost whispering. "Layla." Zuri stepped forward, pulled a fresh pair of gloves from the drawer behind her. She held them out, eyes soft but unwavering. "I was you," she said, "and someone once let me try." Layla took the gloves with trembling hands. Zuri smiled. "Let's begin." Across the hangar, Malik watched quietly from a distance. Sam leaned over, murmured, "There she goes again." Malik chuckled. "Fixing engines?" Sam shook his head. "Fixing futures." And as Layla slipped on the gloves, her face lit up, not just from pride, but possibility. She didn't know the whole story yet, but one day she would. And maybe, years from now, she'd be the one standing here, handing gloves to someone else who only needed a chance. Because Zuri Monroe didn't just fix jets. She rebuilt the sky for those who had never been allowed to fly.